This is Sparta!
The Spartans fought the Battle of Thermopylae for one reason, and one reason alone, and that was to kill as many Persians as possible. They were very successful in this endeavor, as the bloodshed was that of 20,000 Persian casualties. The movie 300 is not historically accurate to the real Battle of Thermopylae. Many of the historical differences serve to make the movie more entertaining for the viewer. The director of the film took many creative liberties in the way King Leonidas and Xerxes were portrayed, as well as the sizes of the Greek and Persian armies.
The number of soldiers in the movie 300 was greatly exaggerated, with the size of the Persian army being greatly enhanced and the size of the Greek army made much smaller than reality. In the movie 300, the Persian army is displayed as a moving sea of people. At times, it was referred to as a million-man army, and the movement of the army was at times mistaken for that of an earthquake. An army of this magnitude is simply not practical. Historians believe that the true size of the Persian army is to only be 100,000 because of the resources required to provide water and food for 1 million men would simply not be sustainable for such a long journey. The director of the movie 300 would make the army appear much larger than it actually was because it creates a David versus Goliath analogy. The Persians were portrayed as the villains in the movie, and by making the army much larger, it would give the Spartans a greater underdog appearance. In the accounts of the battle from Herodotus, he states that the size of the Persian army is 1.7 million men, so the director most likely used this number when creating the scale of the army. The Greek army in the movie 300 is very small and misleading as to the actual size of the Greek army at Thermopylae. It is very central on the 300 Spartans that fought. However, there were many other Greeks who joined the cause. The only supporting group we see in the movie is the Arcadians. In reality, there were over 7,000 Greeks who came together from various city-states to fight off the Persians at Thermopylae. Of the 7,000 supporting soldiers, 1,120 of them were Arcadians, which is the only addition group shown in the movie. On the last day, Leonidas released all the other supporting Greeks, except for 400 Thebans and 700 Thespians, who volunteered to stay and fight in this final stand. Again, this comes back to the David versus Goliath analogy that the director is trying to follow. By solely focusing on the 300 Spartan soldiers, it gives the appearance of even greater odds stacked against them. This makes the actions of the Spartan soldiers much more heroic, which is what the director is trying to accomplish.
The role and portrayal of King Leonidas in the movie 300 at the Battle of Thermopylae are directed very differently than what historians believe actually transpired. King Leonidas is distinguishable as a muscular, young adult man in the movie 300. He is the ideal role model for all other Spartan soldiers in strength, combat skills, and the inspiration he can provide for others. At the time of the battle, Leonidas would have been 60 years old and beyond his most efficient fighting days. This is much beyond the average life expectancy of a Spartan soldier, which was a mere 35 days. I believe that the director made the choice to cast a much younger actor to play the role of King Leonidas because of how they chose to portray his character. King Leonidas was portrayed as a strong, heroic warrior, and this desired image is much easier to accomplish with a young adult than an older man. In the final moments of the movie, we see King Leonidas injured, but still standing amongst the bodies of his fallen soldiers. He was the last man standing, and it took a hail of arrows from the Persian army to finally bring him to the ground. Unfortunate as it may be, King Leonidas was killed early on the third day of the battle. The Spartans pushed back the Persian lines 4 times in an effort to recover his body, but to no avail. When the Persians discovered the body of Leonidas, they had him beheaded and impaled his head on the pole by the order of Xerxes, as a display of strength. The director chose to make Leonidas the last man standing because it further enhances his image as a character. It is very fitting for the hero, which is how Leonidas was portrayed, to be the last man alive, with only a hail of arrows capable of bringing him down. The main character of a movie cannot die too early, or it takes away the opportunity for dramatic final moments that will leave the audience stunned. Once the fighting in the final stand of the movie begins, King Leonidas has an opportunity to strike Xerxes with his spear by throwing it a great distance at his body. We see the spear glance off the side of Xerxes' face, but cause little overall damage to him. In the real battle, this would not have been possible, because the typical Persian battle formation had the king safely situated in the back lines. There are no reports of Xerxes receiving any injuries during this battle. I believe that the director included this improbable confrontation between the two kings because it easily adds anticipation to the movie. As the spear travels through the air in slow motion, the suspense in the audience rises. And when the reflection of the spear is seen on the steps to Xerxes' chair, the audience collectively holds its breath waiting for impact. While a historical movie can modify specific details to make it more entertaining, it cannot change history, which is why the spear only glanced the side of Xerxes' face and did not fully kill him.
The way in which Xerxes is displayed at the Battle of Thermopylae in the movie 300 is very different from what would have actually occurred in the actual battle.
In 300, Xerxes is portrayed as a slimmed-down, middle-aged man with several piercings on his body. However, this is not accurate, as Xerxes would have been middle-aged at 41 years old. However, he most certainly would not have been dressed and decorated in the way he was presented during the film.
Xerxes would have been wearing the royal dress of Persia with his crown, and he also had a very long beard. He also wouldn't have been moving along in a giant chair with his army, as he would have been held within the base camp of the Persians. I believe these changes was made to Xerxes' person to make him seem like more of a villain and an unlikable person at first glance, as it is much easier to dislike someone you cannot relate to, and someone who frankly looks very odd, which was the point of Xerxes' character in this movie. And it's also most likely why Xerxes was made to look so unfavorable.
In the end of 300, Xerxes is seen before a Spartan army led by King Leonidas. Leonidas strikes Xerxes with a spear, and is then struck down by Xerxes' arrows. However, this scene had many inaccuracies, as King Leonidas tells Xerxes in the scene to come and take their weapons from him after Xerxes offers a standstill. However, this exchange does happen, however it happens before the fighting had even started, and Xerxes would have never been close enough to the battle to be injured by a rogue spear. This is because Xerxes was seen as a god by his people, and the Persian leaders would never have let their king enter combat with the soldiers.
And although this scene added much entertainment to the film, as we were able to see a final showdown between Xerxes and Leonidas, this would have been an impossible scene, as Leonidas had died very early on within the fighting on the third day. I believe the director included this clash between Xerxes and Leonidas because it provided a more satisfying and entertaining end to Leonidas' grand tale than what actually happened in this battle. However, they cannot change history, they can make it more entertaining, which is why this final scene was included, to make Leonidas' tale come to a satisfying end.
Thanks so much for watching to the end of this video. We hope that you can take what you learned today about the Battle of Thermopylae to let your friends know just how wrong they are when they try to give you a history lesson after just watching the movie. Inform them using facts and logic about the real King Leonidas, Xerxes, and the true size of the fighting armies. In the meantime, check out last week's video on everyone's favorite movie, Titanic, as we discussed the historical accuracy of the film, and Jack totally could have survived.